What's up guys, Lou here for Golf Avenue. The golf market is dominated by US giants like TaylorMade, Titleist, Callaway, and you can even throw Ping in there. But an emerging company has made its way in the market using its true patriotic marketing, and we're of course talking about PXG. You can even find some of their clubs in the bag of pros and tour all around the world. Speaking of emerging golf brands, Canada has its very own in the form of Haywood Golf out of Vancouver in BC. We've got boat clubs in stock right now, so we thought what could be a better way of celebrating Canada Day and the 4th of July than put up a US golf brand against a Canada golf brand and see who comes out on top. We're gonna go pick up our clubs, we're gonna go test them out in a TrackMan simulator, we're gonna review the performance, and then we'll crown a winner. Let's go pick up our club. Alright, so usually we'd go digging through our iconic blue bins, but since we're looking for irons today, we're gonna look through our racks. So we find it's easier and more convenient for us to pick them up and not scuff them as much. So let's go look for what we're looking for. We're starting with the Haywood 100s. They're your typical blade irons, really thin profile. So we're expecting a lot of feel for the ball, but they're also super milled. Haywood claims that each of these irons gets milled for 200 minutes. So I'm really excited to see the feel for the ball and see just how much control I got over the ball. But before we do so and head to the TrackMan, let's go pick up our clubs from our neighbors from the south. So moving on to our PXG set, we know that PXG has a mill grind set. Unfortunately, we don't have one of those in stock, so the next best thing we'll do, and we're talking about a muscle back set. In this case, it's the 0311T in the black finish. It's the 3rd generation from PXG. They're classified as a player distance iron, so we're expecting a good bit of distance out of those, but also a little bit of forgiveness, which will help us on missed strike. Let's go to Golf Avenue headquarters and see how they perform on the simulator. All right, guys, we made it to the sim. It's time to test our clubs. First up, for all of our clubs, the ball we'll be using, the 2024 TP5X from TaylorMade. We'll also use the same shaft for all of our clubs, the Aerotech Steel Fiber I-110. We have the special black edition for our PXG irons. I'll try to give you guys as much feedback as I can with every one of the clubs. And also, we'll be testing the pitching wedge from both sets, the 5-iron and the 7-iron. And let's get to testing our clubs. So the Haywood club, especially the pitching wedge, feels great. Honestly, what you would expect from a blade club, a really great feel for the ball. You know when you're hitting a good strike, when you're hitting a poor strike. What I will say is that the control of this club is really up there. Like what you're expecting from a blade, I was able to shape the draws, shape the fades, really feel the ball and place it wherever I wanted. So good on them for that. Good zip on the ball too, I'll say that. The only downside is the ball didn't travel as far as it would with my personal clubs, but I would expect that from a blade. So far so good from Haywood. I like the pitching wedge. So for the PXG pitching wedge, the feel is not as good, but the contact of the club face feels amazing. You won't necessarily feel where your impact was on the club face, but the feel you'll get of the ball, personally, I like it much better. It's much more smooth, feels better in your hands. Overall, the thing I noticed with this one is the ball flies longer, which you can expect out of the MB iron with the muscle back. But overall, great performance. Really can't say anything bad about the pitching wedge. I'm excited to see how the longer clubs perform, just because this one's a little more forgiving than the Haywood. Time to move on to the 7-iron. We're starting with the Haywood again. Let's get to it. For the Haywood 7-iron, it's really harder to find personally the center of the club face with this one or produce high quality strikes. I'm still able to make good contact with the ball, get it flying, but I just don't think I'm getting the full force out of my strike with these irons because they're blades, because the shaft's a graphite. Hard to tell, but I would say though that the control of the golf ball is really still at the top of the charts with this one. Really able to fade it away, also draw it inside the way I wanted. So good on Haywood for control. In terms of feel, not what I would expect out of a blade, but again, steel shaft would probably help with this. So something to keep in mind. Let's take a look at the PXG. So with the PXG 7-iron, the same qualities that we saw from the pitching wedge in terms of forgiveness with the muscle at the back, and a little more distance than we got with our Haywood. The 7-iron from PXG is closer to what I would personally get with my own clubs, which is really encouraging and also really a testament to the fact that blades will probably take a few yards away from you if you don't have a really strong swing. So PXG so far with the 7-iron, really good. I'm really excited to try the 5-iron just because this one is pretty forgiving already, and just see how much of a difference there is between the long 5-iron of a blade and the long 5-iron of a muscle back iron. So let's get to it and test those 5-irons. So we're gonna start with the Haywoods once again. Really thin here. I don't know what to expect with these ones. They're probably not gonna go very far, but I'm really excited to test the feel and the control for the ball. So let's get to testing. So with the Haywood 5-iron, what I really noticed is that distance is not there. They're blade irons. I'm never gonna get the same distance as I would get with my personal iron set, which are thicker, a little more forgiving, more like the PXG. What I will say though is that when you hit a pure strike, there's nothing like it. Your ball is gonna fly. It's gonna have a nice trajectory. Personally, my natural trajectory is a small little fade, which the ball was able to produce. Overall, great feel for the ball, nice control of the ball, but the big issue is that if you don't have fast swing speeds, you're really gonna struggle with this one, and to get it far especially. So keep that in mind with 5-iron. Let's move on to the PXG. When it comes to the PXG's 5-iron, really better feel for me. The blades were a little crisp. The feel for the ball was amazing. I would say that the PXG, I felt more forgiveness out of the club head. Even though I wasn't necessarily hitting the best strikes, I would still manage to find the fairway, or at least not be too far away from it. So what I will say from the PXG's 5-iron is that the ball does travel, the muscle back help, you do feel it, but the only downside is you might not be as accurate as you would be with your Haywoods, which is something to take into consideration. So if you're after forgiveness and distance, PXG. If you want accuracy with your long irons, Haywood might be a solution for you. All right, guys, so that wraps it up for a test here at the sim. We're gonna head back to the FC and take a closer look at the data we gathered. See you guys there. We're back at the FC, so let's not waste any more time and take a closer look at the performance of our pitching wedges. When you're looking at the chart, you see that the PXG pitching wedge has a clear advantage over the Haywood's 100 in terms of distance. I kind of expected those numbers considering the 0311 tees have more of a muscle back profile and the Haywoods have more of an actual proper blade profile, so that's not really surprising at all to us. But overall, I was still impressed by the PXG's ball speed considering it never got the best swing speed or best club speed during this whole test. Despite the slower swing speed, the PXG managed to produce higher ball speed, which resulted in longer strikes. On the other hand, we have to acknowledge the stopping power of the Haywood irons. There was only 2 yards difference between the total distance and the carry distance when it came to the Haywoods. Such a small discrepancy between your total and carry distance is very encouraging for a pitching wedge since you're most likely trying to be accurate on your approach shots with it. And the 2-yard discrepancy between the carry and total distance of the Haywood is a full yard shorter than the PXG's, which is very impressive considering they have pretty much the same spin rates. So overall, despite the impressive stopping power and spin rate of the Haywood, I would still go with the PXG in this case, just because the numbers are so close to what I would tend to generate with my own pitching wedge. Moving on to our 7-irons. Here again, the PXG has the upper hand in the distance department, but the discrepancy between the two brands is not as important as it was with the pitching wedges. This was all the more surprising to me considering that with longer clubs, you'd expect the differences to be that more obvious. Actually, there's only 2 yards difference between the two brands when it comes to carry distance, which is all the more impressive when we look at the stats of the pitching wedges. Once again, the stopping power of the Haywood is on full display as there's less than 7 yards between the carry distance and the total distance. And the low spin rates are probably the only knock that we'd give to the PXG 7-iron. Overall, it performed great, but the rollout between the carry and total distance is a bit too much for a 7-iron in my opinion. And one more thing with the 7-irons. The Haywoods did benefit from faster swing speed and club speed, but it did also produce the higher ball speed between the two 7-irons, which was very impressive considering what we saw with the pitching wedges. Finally, let's take a look at the data from our 5-irons. Here again, the PXG shines, but the difference in body type between the two club heads really shows itself here, as there's almost 5 yards difference between the carry distance of both clubs. And it's even more striking when you're looking at total distance, as we're talking about 9 yards difference there. That's a full club when you're out on the course. The difference in club head profile really has to be taken into account here, especially when you consider the fact that the Haywood benefited from the fastest swing speed, but couldn't generate the fastest ball speed. There's no doubt about it though. The Haywood's iron were designed for accuracy, but at 10 yards shorter than my personal gamer, it would be hard for me to justify the transition to blades irons. So rounding out this test, I think we can all agree that PXGs were probably the best irons for me. They did feel better, and they did produce stats that were closer to my own personal irons, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't consider Haywood irons. I can easily imagine a skilled player with high swing speed putting them in the bag. On top of looking amazing, they'll provide you with a great feel for the ball that'll allow you to be more accurate with your irons. But now that we know which one performed best for me, let us know down in the comments which one was your favorite. And while you're at it, let us know what you'd like to see us do next in our future video. From Golf Avenue, I've been Lou. Until next time.